Here comes Responception Part 2. We started this last Saturday with a video by Choose Jesus, which was responding to a video that I had made of a video that he made, and yeah, my brain hurts already. However, it will hopefully make some kind of sense in the end, but I wouldn't be betting on that, at least from his side. But I guess we can always hope, right? We're back with yet another special Saturday video responding to the response made by Choose Jesus. I still do appreciate that he took the time to respond, but the farther that we go, the less he seems to know about anything. So we're going to jump back in exactly where we left off and see if there's anything worthwhile here. I really hate to jinx myself, but I wouldn't be holding my breath, would you?
We never will. We live in a fallen world, and the rights we're trying to take away from people is, yeah, for them not to kill their babies, like in abortion issues.
If you remember, last time we just stopped at a random spot when I got tired of doing it, about halfway through his video or so. And as I said, we could, and as it turns out did, stop midway through one of his ideas. It happens. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. Anyhow, he starts off by admitting that Christians, at least some Christians, are trying to take away rights. Why? Because he doesn't like it. Well, let's be honest. Who cares exactly what he likes? I think your religious faith is stupid, but I'm not trying to take away your rights to believe it. I just reserve the right to make fun of you over it because that's what you deserve. But here's the thing. It isn't actually any of your business. If you're missing a uterus, fuck the hell off. You don't get to make any bodily autonomy decisions if it isn't your body on the line.
Yeah, we want to take a woman's right away that wants the right to dismember her baby. Yeah, we do think that's horrible, and we don't want women dismembering and decapitating their babies.
But I don't like it, so wah. Because that's really what you come off sounding like. But you remember what I said last time about him being ignorant about pretty much everything? Yeah, he gets right back into that here, or more likely, he just never stopped. He is aware that the overwhelming majority of abortions happen in the first trimester of pregnancy, and that means in 2019, which is the last year we actually have data for, that was 93% of abortions at or before 13 weeks of gestation. Only 1% were performed at 21 weeks or beyond. Prior to that, the embryo looks like a tadpole with just limb buds. It doesn't even appeal to the vast majority of the busybody religious, so they only talk about the 1% because those are the ones that actually look like babies. And that's all you see in any of their stories and their videos and all of that, because it's easy to get an emotional reaction out of people that way. Remember, that's all religion is. It's a long, absurd, emotional reaction. Maybe these people need to grow the hell up.
So yeah, and we don't want um gay sex being taught to our children in school and stuff like that, and you know.
Now, I will actually agree with that with a lot of caveats. We shouldn't have any sex taught to children, period, at least not young children. And if he is talking about hauling drag queens into kindergarten classrooms to graphically describe sex acts to young children, I'm completely with you. Then again, I'd say the same thing about heterosexual sex acts too. There is a time and a place for these things, and that's not it. However, what I suspect he's talking about is the fact that his children, if he has any, of course, shouldn't learn that these things exist ever, period. And that's just stupid. They're going to have to get out there and deal with it sometime in their life. Get over yourself. It's not that hard. It's really too bad that you're too immature to figure that out. There are people who are different than you are. They're not any better than you, and they're sure the hell not any worse. You don't have to like it, but you do have to deal with it. And that's where you people are always going wrong.
So, yeah, okay. What's next on the list? Oh, excuse me. Well, you said something about Satanists are not a threat to secular society. Yes, they are.
How so? What specifically are they doing that threatens secular society as a whole? Provide demonstrable examples. Because we established last time that they're not trying to push their beliefs on anyone. They're not trying to change the law to suit their beliefs. They're not going door to door. They're not trying to convert anybody. What is it exactly that they're doing that poses a demonstrable threat? Because I don't think he's going to have a coherent answer.
Again, if you watch a lot of testimonies of ex-Satanists, the ones that were deep in it, they say a lot of their satanic rituals is killing babies, raping children. I mean, read Aleister Crowley. Come on.
And as I said, those are just stories, often told by people trying to make a buck and sell books, or with an agenda and trying to get famous among their new in-group. If an ex-Satanist becomes a Christian, they're pressured to tell all kinds of horror stories about their former religious beliefs in order to fit in. Of course, there isn't any actual evidence for any of it. If there was, all of those former Satanists would be in prison right now, wouldn't they? Because, they murdered babies, supposedly. Why doesn't that happen? How many arrests do you think there are every year of Satanists who murder babies? 0. Because here's the thing. Christians are really, really good at just making shit up. And they don't tend to give a crap if any of it is actually true. There are still Christians out there that are claiming that Jews murder Christians so they can use their blood in rituals. This is what happens when you're really, really dumb and willing to buy into any cockamamie story that supports your religious narrative. It doesn't happen. In fact, as we established last time, Christians murder children a hell of a lot more often, and demonstrably so, than any actual Satanists do. But of course, he doesn't care about any of that, does he? This is why listening to dipshits in a car with absolutely no evidence and no interest in reality, that's not really a good idea. These people don't have any demonstrable expertise in anything. They're just embarrassing themselves.
You just read a little bit of Aleister Crowley and you'll see what I mean. Do a little research.
Thanks. Maybe you should do the same thing. Because you know that Aleister Crowley died in 1947, right? So he's not a danger to anybody. He's a corpse rotting in the ground. Again, we come back to the simple question. What danger, demonstrably, do any Satanists pose to anybody, especially considering the fact that the vast majority of self-identified Satanists don't even believe in Satan? This is just bald ignorance speaking. Ignorance and vast gullibility. Knock it off.
And Satanists are not con men? That's crazy because Satan is literally the father of lies. He's the great deceiver.
See, here's the problem. He, like a lot of people, Christian and otherwise, sadly, doesn't actually know what the hell he's talking about. We see this a lot, but it tends to be very, very wide-reaching. People say what they think, but not what they've actually done any research on. It's all, well, it sounds kosher to me, but they're just stupid. That's the problem. He has never talked to an actual Satanist. He's just making this up as he goes along, or he's listening to the stories of other people who are making it up as they go along. And he's not asking any rational questions along the way. He can only look at things from his own particular theological perspective, and his perspective is so absurdly skewed as to be completely worthless. This is how most theists operate. Zero knowledge, all fifis, making things up at will because that's what they want to believe. Is it any wonder that these people are such imbeciles?
And Satanists are following him. That means they're the biggest con men, because their father is the father of lies, and of course they're going to lie to you.
You are a total idiot. They don't believe in Satan. Church of Satan doesn't believe in Satan. The Satanic Temple doesn't believe in Satan. This guy is so deluded. He's listening to stories that he has never checked out for himself. I'm sure he'd say, well, they're just lying to you, because that's what he wants to believe. But that's stupid. This is a problem with a lot of Christians and other religions. They're not immune either, but for the most part, they only listen to each other. They live in insular little religious bubbles where these ridiculous stories start, and because nobody's actually doing any independent research or verifying any of this information, and none of them actually give a crap about the truth, these stories just go on and on and on and on. This was kind of the point I was making in his original video, that he doesn't seem to know anything about actual Satanism. And remember, I'm not defending them because I think Satanists are just as stupid, but he's just spouting just so stories, and you have to remember that just so stories, in the largest sense, are just tales that have been passed on for a long, long time, to the point where people just don't question them, even though they're just absurdly false. This is dumb, folks. And there he is.
Oh, he said something about mega churches, and yeah, those are prosperity teachers. Think about like Kenneth Copeland, how he's a billionaire. Yeah, real Christians, the Christians that follow Jesus, the loving teachings of Lord Jesus, we know about the mega churches and the prosperity gospel, how give me all your money and a lot of money will come back to you. Yeah, I want billions. Yeah, those are Satanists. They're not Christians.
Now you know that he's out of his mind. Exactly which asshole did you just yank that one out of? Because here's the thing, not all megachurches push a prosperity gospel. In fact, I'd argue that he probably doesn't even know what the hell the prosperity gospel is. Modern prosperity theology started back in the 70s and 80s under three televangelists, Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, and Frederick Casey Price. The likes of Benny Hinn, Oral Roberts, Robert Tilton, Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar, Joseph Price, and E.W. Kenyon, just to pick some of the more successful, they have used it to become very, very wealthy. But guess who else is wealthy? Lots and lots of regular old Christian apologists. William Lane Craig is worth a couple $1 million. Frank Turek, he's about the same. These aren't people living in poverty doing the work of the Lord. I know I've talked about this before, but when I was growing up, I went to school with Bob Schuler's kids. I knew the family very, very well. I hung out with Gretchen and, to a lesser degree, with Carol. None of these people had anything at all to do with any prosperity gospel nonsense. Yes, there was a lot of con men nonsense that goes on in Christianity, maybe even their church, far more than most Christians would care to admit, but prosperity gospel is only a very, very tiny part of it. The rest of it is just pure gullibility and stupidity.
And the Bible talks a lot about greed, how we should be giving, not taking. So... yeah, we don't like them. They're not Christians. The Bible warned us also that there's going to be a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. And there's a lot of them. So that's why we have faith in the Bible, because, it warned us. We see it. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, and I really hope they repent before it's too late. People like Kenneth Copeland. Who else? Oh, there's a bunch of them. I don't want to name them.
Probably because you couldn't. But here's the thing that is becoming more and more obvious as time goes on. Now, he said that he's been a Christian for about 3 years, something like that, which is fine, but he's very clearly still in the thrall of New Christian syndrome. Those are the people who are just on fire for the Lord, but they don't actually know anything. They're still absorbing this religious nonsense that's thrown at them from all corners. They haven't actually done any independent research on their own. They don't actually know nothing. And I know that because I was kind of like that once upon a time, back in the very, very early days, where I knew about the Bible, I knew what I was supposed to believe, but I didn't actually know any of the reasons behind it. Then I matured as a Christian. Hell, at one point, I could almost quote the entire damn Bible from memory. But I was still in that theological bubble where you listen to the guy in the dress in the pulpit, and if he said that it was true, well, it was true. And you just bought into all of it hook, line, and sinker because that's what you thought you were supposed to do. Other denominations were wrong, some more so than others, because obviously we were right. And that's where most Christians are, and that's where most Christians stay. Don't ask questions. Believe what you're told. Don't go beyond the church and its teachings. It's only once you really start to ask questions about the validity of the Bible and the validity of the teachings that you start to realize that none of it is remotely defensible. It's all wishful thinking and make believe.
Oh, he also said Christians are assholes. If you met a Christian that is an asshole, that Christian probably needs to repent and start following the Lord Jesus better.
I think you're kind of missing the point. They're assholes because they're Christians. That's kind of the problem. So anyway, here's another story since I'm throwing these things out here. I'm not sure if I ever told this one before, and if I have, I apologize, but I don't even know anymore. So anyway, I have, or had, I'm not sure, a distant aunt and uncle who are complete Christian assholes. They were both doctors who quit their jobs so that they could become missionaries and preach the gospel. You remember the classic George Carlin bit about people who mentioned Jesus 147 times in a 2-minute conversation? Yeah, that was them. They couldn't be normal people. They were constantly on, if you get my meaning. So much so that they drove everybody in their lives who weren't utter fanatics away. They found themselves quietly uninvited from family get-togethers. Their own son, who was a really good friend of mine for a very long time, the moment that he turned 18, he moved as far away from them as he could. He hated his parents because they were assholes. And it was their religion that made them assholes. They were just so blinded to it that they couldn't see the reason that everybody around them hated them. If they're still around, and I haven't seen them for about 20 years, I have no idea if they're living or dead, but if they're still alive, I really hope they got better, because that's got to be a terrible way to live, but that's religion for you.
Plus, how many Christians have you met that were assholes? I don't know. I used to be one, but, when I was agnostic, but Lord Jesus, he saved my life. He softened my hardened heart.
I have a feeling that you're just as blind as they were. Now, I do know Christians who are absolutely fine, people who realize that their faith is theirs alone, and they don't try to convert anybody else. They don't try to bang their Bibles. They recognize that most people around them just aren't interested, and they don't try to push it on them. They don't have YouTube channels, at least not that I know of. If you believe this stuff and you keep it to yourself, at least when others don't show an interest, that's perfectly fine with me. Believe what you want to believe. Otherwise, you're an asshole. Just look in the mirror.
And it's sad that you think all Christians are assholes because I know a lot of them and really, we're really good people. And, we do a lot for charity. Look up charity work. It's mostly Christians, especially Catholics.
No, it's not. At least not once you remove donations to the churches from the equation, because that's not charity. In fact, most of the really big charities out there, they're secular. The American Red Cross, Goodwill, the American Lung Association, Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders, the Humane Society, the Peace Corps, UNICEF. The list is very, very, very long. Unfortunately, sticking with the religious for a moment here, they often have a very bad understanding of what's going on. Among the big three Abrahamic religions out there, Christians actually give the least according to studies. But even among the religious giving, it's usually not going to anybody who's actually needy. 41% is going to keep the church running. That's not a charity, that's a scam. It's not actually doing anything for anyone. It's paying salaries, keeping the building open, yada, yada, yada. That doesn't count. Of the rest, 32% is going to religious charities, which are a problem in and of themselves. Most religious charities are only doing quote unquote charitable work as a cover for attempted conversions. The Salvation Army, for instance, they'll give you a sandwich if you agree to pray with them. They'll give you a bed for the night if you profess belief in Jesus. They're not there to help people, they're there to convert people. The help is only a way to entice the needy to play along. And then you look at secular charities like Oxfam, and here's what's going on with them. Nowhere in there is try to convert people to atheism. You really need to look at the mission statements of these charities and which ones are trying to do stuff that doesn't actually help anybody. Guess what? Those are the religious ones. Just look at the Haiti disaster back in 2010 and some of the quote-unquote charity money given by the religious, which went to Audible Bibles. These are people who are starving to death, who have no water to drink and nowhere to live, and you people think they need Bibles? I mean, hell, they can't even burn them to keep warm. This is the kind of charity that you're talking about. If you get rid of the religious nonsense and only address the stuff that's actually providing charitable help to those people in need, the religious aren't doing that hot.
So, yeah, if you're an asshole Christian, listen to Bitch Spot blog and stop being an asshole.
Well, you first, but I don't really think that's going to happen, is it?
Also, what did you say? Christians spend all of their time screaming that God is going to come and get all non-believers? Something like that, but again, which Christians are you talking about?
You ever hear of hell? I mean, I didn't say all Christians. You can go back to the original video and see that, but how many Christians online are saying that people are going to hell? Lots of them. Why? Because hell is used as a mindless cudgel by the religious. You don't want to go to hell, do ya? Well, there's no reason to think that hell is real in the first place. It's really stupid. Come up with some evidence for it, then we'll talk. Unfortunately, this is often backfiring on the religious. Yes, the fear of hell does tend to persist after you've left the religion behind, at least for a little while, because it's mental and emotional abuse on the part of the religious. But a lot of Christians are starting to realize that hell's really the only reason that they believe at all. It's why they're sticking around, because they don't want to go to hell. The second they deal with that, they leave the faith. Good job, Christians. You're a bunch of fucking idiots.
I'm a Christian. I know a lot of Christians. Are you saying we're spending all of our time here on earth screaming at non-believers that they're going to go to hell? Why? I mean, what? We're spending all our time doing that? This is your weird caricature of Christianity.
No, because I didn't say that. This whole thing has been him reading things into what I said and going off on wild tangents. Maybe that's why he didn't include any of my video in his response. Maybe he knows he's full of shit. Clearly, Christians aren't screaming at people while they're taking a dump. Use some common sense. This is just you making a complete fool of yourself. However, there are an awful lot of Christians who do spend an awful lot of time pushing their beliefs on others. I wasn't that bad, at least I hope not back in the day, but I never went anywhere without a Bible in my hands, and I was always ready to give an accounting of my faith based on 1 Peter 3:15. That doesn't mean that I just accosted people out of the blue, and that's certainly happened to me more times than I care to remember. I've been standing in line at the grocery store and some lunatic Christian behind me is trying to share her faith to anybody who will listen. And I'm not saying that all Christians are like that because clearly they're not. I actually say that most Christians, they probably barely believe as it is. They say it because it's a social thing, not a religious thing. But, what do I know, right? I will say, however, that I've never ever had a Muslim do that to me. I mean, I don't live too far away from a large Krishna temple, and I've never had any of them come and bother me. I've never had a Satanist at my door. In fact, I think I've told this story before, but a couple of years back, not long after we moved into our current house, some idiot came to the door. It was some middle-aged man with a woman, and by the time I got the door open, this guy had his Bible open and he was just sitting there reading it to me. He wasn't a Jehovah's Witness either, before you ask. So I said very politely, "Sorry, I'm not interested," and went to close the door. And he shoved his foot in the door and literally screamed at me, and I do mean screamed, "I'm gonna save your soul!" Now, I hadn't said more than 4 words to this moron, and here he is, frothing at the mouth. Now, that's not all Christians, but it's impossible not to recognize that there are these people out there. And the woman was grabbing at his arm, going, "Let's go, let's go." I mean, these people are there. Don't be a complete dumbass.
Is that how you see it? Just this cartoonish caricature? Like we're all just running around screaming, screaming at people that they're going to hell. I mean, you know. And actually, I do agree to a certain extent that I do see some crazy street preachers that do that. And again, I will admit with you that they are crazy. They should probably stop doing that. That's not the way to do it. People are not going to listen to you. Hey, you're going to hell if you don't stop doing drugs. I mean, it's got to be a better way. But those are a minority. Stop saying that all Christians are going around screaming their heads off like idiots.
I didn't. That's just you reading into things. The word all did not appear anywhere in what I said. Go back and quote me exactly what I said if you think it was. But, compare that to, say, Satanists, which I think is what I was talking about at the time. I don't remember exactly, but let's play make-believe. When is the last time that you ran into a vocal Satanist? In your life. And I'm willing to bet that answer is never. I have known exactly one Satanist in my life. And this is back when I was in high school, a Christian high school, by the way. And he was just looking for attention. You'd have thought they'd have thrown him out, but his parents were rich and they kept giving money to the school, so he got away with it. That happened more often than you'd think. I doubt he even really believed in Satan. He carried around the Satanic Bible, but I think he was really just trying to make people mad. When is the last time that you ran into a vocal Jew on the street? I mean, I can't think of a single time. Hindus? Never. Although, granted, I can't think of the last time that I talked to a Hindu in person, so that probably colors the results a bit. Vocal Christians, though, that happens all the time. Granted, it's hard to go 10 feet without tripping over a Christian, so again, that probably does color the results. When you're in a largely Christian society, although that's changing, you tend to run into a bunch of crazy Christians. The number should be 0, though, because you shouldn't have people who are just being assholes because of their faith. So my question is, why isn't it?
What else? You said Christians should keep their delusions to themselves. Well, that's your opinion that you think we're delusional, but delusional is believing in the scientific impossibility that nothing created everything. That's very delusional. That's mental illness, my friend.
We covered that last time, and unfortunately, you're still a moron. Nobody says that but you idiots. Knock it off.
Delusional is believing that a boy could be a girl and a girl could be a boy.
Yeah, but there's actual medical evidence for that. Maybe you ought to look it up before you make yourself look like an imbecile. Gender dysphoria, whether you like it or not, it's a real thing. You can do brain scans and see the physical differences in transgendered people. This is just you being ignorant again. Now, I will say there's a lot of stuff out there that's going on socially that is, shall we say, scientifically unjustified. That's not something that I'm going to go into in this video, but there are many, many cases that are kind of problematic, as much as I really hate that word. To say that doesn't happen at all, though, is just you being stupid. You don't seem to know a whole lot about, well, much, and that's probably why you fall for religion. Okay, I hate to say it, but we're going to have to put the last of this video off until next time. I just arbitrarily chopped it in half the first time, thinking, hey, I can go through both of them in about the same amount of time, but unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to happen. I still have about 3 minutes of his video left, so we're going to finish that up next week with something that's hopefully a lot shorter. I hope. So I'm going to ask again, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Honestly, I don't think he fundamentally understands much of anything about the real world that he lives in. There are reasons that studies clearly show an inverse correlation between education and religiosity. The more you know, the less you believe, and he doesn't seem to know much of anything. Not sure why they gave him a license in the first place, because I don't think I trust him to drive. I don't know, maybe all those drugs damaged his brain and he's just sitting in the car of his caregiver. I've got no clue. Anyway, until next week, try not to do this to yourself. You can be a whole lot better than this. This is just an example of what you shouldn't do, because it's kind of hard to get any worse.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom, dicky,